Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanic. And if you enjoy this fanic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanic like this. And now let's start the fanic.
Hokage's office. Why jutsu? Naruto Uzumaki shouted out, preparing to unleash his newest technique on the most powerful man in the village. As the smoke cleared, the very obviously male Naruto Uzumaki was replaced by a female version of himself with C-cup S and blonde pigtails. So what do you think, old man? The female Naruto said in a sultry voice. Unfortunately for Naruto, his technique was a little too effective and the legendary third Hokage suffered a massive nosebleed. Old man, are you alright? Naruto said nervously after dispelling his jutsu. Yes, I'm fine, Naruto. Your technique was extremely effective. The third Hokage admitted. The third would never admit this publicly, but Naruto's technique would catch many ninja off guard who had never expected it coming. The younger ones perhaps not, but Naruto had a gift. Thanks, old man. You've just given me a great idea. Naruto said excitedly. Naruto realized that if he could get the third Hokage with a simple technique like that, who knows what he could do. He couldn't do the clone jutsu, but was very clever and he knew quite a bit about his villagers from all of his time as a runaway. Now he had a path to becoming Hokage and one that nobody would see coming. Scene skip. As Naruto made his way around the village, he realized that in order to develop his seduction techniques he would require help. Unfortunately for him, there were only a few people in the village he could turn to. The first person was obviously the Hokage, but if he wanted to develop this new style, he couldn't really talk to the old man. The second was Chuki Ichiraku, the owner of his favorite ramen place. He and his daughter, Ayame, had found him starving and offered him food a few years back, and now ramen was one of the only things he ate consistently. The final person he could trust was Tenten, one of his classmates in the previous year. The two of them got along because they were outcasts in the group, because Tenten was seen as a weapons nut because her father owns the local weapon shop. The two had gotten along pretty well and Tenten had supplied him with more kunai when she noticed that his were so rusty. Granted, now that she had graduated, he figured he wouldn't be able to see her as much. Making his way over to Ichiraku Ramen, he decided to talk to Ayame first, since she would be the easiest person to talk to given the circumstances. Scene skip. Everything is now in place, Naruto said happily as he relaxed on his bed. Ayame had agreed to help Naruto with his charm lessons, and since he had a few weeks until the Ninja Academy started up again, he could develop his new style. The problem for Naruto now was finding somebody to help him train and develop the skills he required. Neither of the Ichirakus were expert ninja and Tenten was too busy to train with him every day. He was out of options and he didn't like it. If you wish for some help, I can be of service, a dark voice yelled to Naruto. Who are you? What's going on? Naruto asked nervously. Something very wrong was happening. Close your eyes and I'll tell you what you want to know. The voice said, was tempted to ignore the voice because it seemed extremely suspicious. However, he was aware that if there was a person willing to help him, he couldn't afford to not take that risk. You have my attention, Naruto shouted out, closing his eyes. All of a sudden he felt his body collapse and fall out. Mindscape. Where am I? Naruto asked nervously as he looked around him. Gone was his room and all of the comforts it held, and now he was looking at a large hallway that reminded him of a boiler room. Come this way, the voice shouted out, beckoning Naruto towards it. Naruto followed the voice and the hallway became clearer, and after a few minutes he finally arrived at the end. In front of him was a large jail cell that was as tall as the Hokage building in his village. There was an ominous darkness in front of him, but he could tell whatever was inside the jail cell was the one who called to him earlier. The foul chakra coming from this being was more intense than anything Naruto had ever imagined. So who are you? Or I guess I should say, what are you? Naruto asked. He got his answer when the darkness seemingly vanished to reveal an enormous fox 50 feet high. The 9 tails swinging behind him made for an ominous sight, and Naruto was stunned. I am the 9-tailed fox. It's a pleasure to meet you, the voice said with a smile. It can't be. You're dead. How are you speaking to me? Naruto exclaimed. He knew the beast was telling the truth, but he had no idea how. Bah, you humans never tell anybody anything. The fox scoffed. The truth is far different from that, and it's time you learn the truth. The fox said calmly. What do you mean? He was afraid of the answer, but he remembered that the village called him demon many times. Perhaps it was time for him to figure out the truth. All right, boy, but just promise me you won't freak out. The fox replied. All right. Naruto nodded in approval, and once he was done, the fox began to explain the truth. By the time it was over, Naruto was shell-shocked. His father, who by the way was the fourth Hokage, had sealed the fox into his body as a child after the attack on the village. The beast didn't want to, but was forced to do so by somebody else who removed the fox from his mother. It was so surreal that Naruto couldn't believe the truth. How do I know you're not lying to me, Kyuubi? You don't, but if you ask your third Hokage, he'll confirm my story. Wait a minute, the old man knew. Naruto asked in disbelief. Yes, but he couldn't say anything for fear of my release. Kyuubi explained. All right, I'll ask the old man, but what does this have anything to do with you helping me? Simple, boy. I heard your desire to use charm to make yourself a great ninja, and I believe I can help you in many ways. I see, so you want your freedom in return. Hardly. If I leave you, I'll just be sealed away again, and I happen to like you, kid. You know the harsh truths of the world, and you've stayed strong despite that. I may not like being sealed in you, but I respect your determination. Okay, Naruto said nervously. He was surprised the demon fox was so polite, but he wasn't willing to look a gift horse in the mouth. Scene skip. The next day, Naruto went by the third Hokage's office hoping to speak with him about an important topic, and luckily for him, the Hokage was free. Unlike before, when Naruto walked into the office, the Hokage could tell that this was far more business-related than some of his previous visits. After all, the young man rarely visited him, and for him to do so twice in 2 days was a problem. So what brings you here, Naruto? The third wondered. I wanna ask you about something, in private. Naruto said nervously. Okay, ask away. The third said calmly before nodding his Anbu guards away. Something clearly happened to the boy, and if he was right, things had gotten interesting. He could tell that Naruto was hesitant to ask the question on his mind, but even the third Hokage didn't expect Naruto ask what he did. Why didn't you tell me about my dad? Naruto asked nervously. That's impossible. There's no way he could know the truth. The third thought to himself. So you know about your father? The third asked nervously. I had a talk with the Kyuubi yesterday, and he told me all about that day. Naruto revealed, much to the third's shock. What else did he say? The third asked nervously. He said that he doesn't hold a grudge against the village or the fourth, but he simply wants revenge on the man who caused him to be sealed away for the second time, so he's going to help me train. Second time? The third asked nervously. He was revealing something that was incredibly dangerous. He said that the person who caused him to get sealed the first time is back and that he wants revenge. The third Hokage was terrified because it was common knowledge that the first time the fox was sealed was because of Madara Uchiha. Naruto, I'll allow the Kyuubi to help you on 2 conditions. What are they? Naruto asked nervously. He was just telling the third that the Kyuubi was training him, but not what his goal was once it was said and done. The first is that you meet with me every week until you become a genin and tell me what he's taught you. The second is that you don't tell anybody that you're speaking to the Kyuubi. The villagers won't react well to the news. Deal. Naruto said, smiling. He was glad that the third approved of his plan, and now he could get started. You should consider yourself lucky that he doesn't know you're planning to become a pervert. Then don't tell him, Kyuubi. Naruto retorted. He wasn't in the mood for games since it was time for his ambition to play out, and he was looking forward to getting started. Time skip. It's been a week since Naruto began his training with the Kyuubi and it already was giving him great results. The first day was spent learning this technique called the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Apparently it would increase the results of his training and make him even more fit. After the first day was over, Naruto and Kyuubi started thinking about ideas for new techniques and now it was time to visit the third Hokage for their weekly meeting. So, should we tell the third about our plans to be a seducer? Naruto wondered as the pair made their way to his office. Of course not. You fool. The Kyuubi said harshly. Whatever. Naruto huffed as they arrived at the office. When Naruto opened the door, the third Hokage was sitting in his chair but another person was there. He had the standard Jonin vest on, but what surprised Naruto was his white spiky hair and the mask that seemed to hide his right eye. Good morning, Naruto. I hope you're not angry, but I decided to get you some help with your training. The third said calmly. Naruto was pleasantly surprised that anybody would agree to help him that he didn't know, but he figured that he should be grateful under the circumstances. So who is this guy? Naruto wondered. The third chuckled at Naruto's response. This guy is Kakashi Hatake, one of my strongest Jonin. The thing that you should focus on is that when he was a genin, he trained under your father. He doesn't have any students this year, so he's agreed to help with your training. That's right. Minato-sensei was a great man and it would be my privilege to help his son. I wish I could have helped you more, Naruto, but the village was in a dark place after that. I tried my best to help you as one of the Anbu who watched over you, but I could only do so much. Kakashi said solemnly. Naruto was glad that somebody was looking out for him. Nice to work with you, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said happily. With a Jonin sensei like this working with him, he was ready to go and he knew that he could get far stronger. Time skip. 2 months have passed since Naruto and Kakashi began their training, and with the school year about to start up again, Naruto was both excited for the new school year, but also annoyed by what he had required. So tell me again why I have to hide my progress, Kakashi-sensei. In both areas, Naruto groaned as they discussed the plan for the upcoming year. 2 reasons. The first is that you don't want to stand out. Kakashi smirked. When Naruto arrived for his first day of training, he noticed that Kakashi was reading Ika Ika Paradise, so he decided to tell him about his real plan. Kakashi naturally approved, so in addition to helping him master the basic jutsu, he and the Kyuubi helped him develop a few techniques that he could use to seduce his fellow kunoichi and any enemies that he dealt with moving forward. The second reason is that most of the teachers are going to be biased anyway, so don't give them anything to use against you. Kakashi said calmly. There's another reason, isn't there? Naruto said curiously. One of the things that Kakashi helped him with is the ability to read people, though he had a feeling Kakashi let him do so. Yes. Kakashi groaned. One of the students in the group that's scheduled to graduate with you is Sasuke Uchiha. He's the last of the Uchiha and the civilian council is insisting that I train him because of my Sharingan. He's around the middle of his year, so given how teams are set up, by me holding back, it'll set me up with not only the last Uchiha but the smartest person in our year. Naruto realized. Not quite, but close. The smartest person in this year is Inara and his team is set up already. Kakashi explained. So I may not get the smartest guy, but I'll get somebody who's close. That way we have a powerhouse team ready to go. Naruto smirked. Exactly, Kakashi smiled. The two would have talked further, but because they had somebody observing them, they didn't want to say too much. Well, see you soon, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto smirked. He would have spoken to his observer, but he felt like it wasn't time yet. Scene skip. Naruto was one of the first to arrive at his classroom and he sat down to relax. Little by little he watched his classmates come by, and while he wasn't impressed, a few people instantly stood out to him. The first was Sasuke Uchiha, and from Naruto's observational skills, he knew that the young man was very similar to him. Of course the fangirls also came along, and while he wasn't thrilled with that, he figured that Sasuke was more than capable of dealing with them. The next was Shikamaru Nara, a young man with spiky hair and an extremely lazy attitude. Naruto realized that he was the type who could instantly see through his facade, so he was planning to befriend him as soon as he could. Then of course was the final person who caught his eye, Hinata Hyuga. His reason for being interested in the Hyuga heiress was pretty simple. She sometimes spied on Naruto and Kakashi as they trained. It was a bit annoying for Naruto since he couldn't practice his arrow techniques on those days, but he knew that at the very least she was aware of his true skill. How that manifested during the year would be interesting to find out. When the door opened to reveal his teacher, he was pleasantly surprised that Iruka came in as his homeroom teacher. Of all the teachers he dealt with, Iruka was the easiest and the only one who wasn't obviously biased. Well, let the fun begin, Naruto thought to himself. That's it for the first chapter, and although this one is short, I can assure you that the next one will be far longer and have far more action and erotic fun. This is going to be a Naruto X multi with no real main pairing so to speak of, but again it's just the beginning. Outside of Haku being female, the genders for everyone's going to change, and Naruto's true skill won't be revealed until probably the third chapter or so, depending on how much fun I have with the next one. I don't own Naruto. Anything I use from the story is the property of its creator Masashi Kishimoto. Welcome to the first chapter of the story, everybody. A few things before we get started. 1. I will decide who Naruto seduces, and no amount of comments will change that. 2. The only character that will have a changed gender is Haku, and that's it. Asking me to change genders of characters is utterly useless, so if that's what you're going to say, don't waste my time. 3. You may not like all of my decisions with the story, I don't care. So enjoy the story, and I hope you decide to give it a chance despite whatever bias you may hold. Naruto's apartment. To say that Naruto's first 3 months of the new school year had gone better than he expected would be an understatement. Class was a pain, naturally, but it was outside of class that he showed his real progress. The greatest proof of that was that right now, Ino Yamanaka was butt and her head was bobbing up and down his shaft for a morning blowjob as though it was the most natural thing to do. Just remembering how their relationship started made him smile, since he didn't quite expect it to play out the way it did. Flashback 2 months ago. With the weekend arriving, Naruto walked home from his nightly trip to Ichiraku Ramen excited about the results of his private training. However, his current focus was more on the person following him, especially since he was targeting the person in question for a few weeks now. Most of the girls in his class reminded him of wannabe shinobi, but 2 of them stood out. One was of course Hinata, and he planned to seduce her soon. The second person was Ino Yamanaka. She was the unofficial leader of the Sasuke Uchiha fan club, which annoyed him slightly, but nothing he couldn't work around. Thanks to Kakashi's teaching, he knew that her clan specialized in mental warfare, so she was the perfect test subject for his new technique. She was pretty attractive too, which didn't hurt. Ino's family ran a flower shop, which meant he could go there for his gardening and make his move on her at the same time. Naruto would buy his plants, and when he paid for them, he would use a subtle version of one of his new genjutsu on Ino that would make her show more interest in him. He was certain she would eventually make a move, but he didn't think it would happen so soon. So Kurama, Ino's following me, right? Naruto spoke to his tenant and now comrade. He learned his tenant's real name a few weeks into their training, and Naruto was pleased that they had gotten along so well. Yes, she is. I'm surprised it took you so long to get her. Kurama replied. She's a Yamanaka. They play mind games for a living, so I only used a subtle version. She probably just figured out what I was doing, and that's why it took so long. Naruto smirked as he arrived at his apartment door. Naruto opened his door and didn't lock it, figuring that Ino would be right behind him. True, but now the time has come. Kurama smirked as both felt the door open. Hello Naruto, I take it you've been expecting me. Ino smirked as she walked in. Ino had blonde hair in a ponytail with blue eyes. She was wearing purple sweatshirt and matching skirt that were quite the sight, and she had pretty large ass for a girl her age, but he couldn't focus on all of that right now. Admittedly, I didn't think it would be this soon, but I'm not complaining. Naruto lied. In truth, he was amazed that she took so long to discover his trick. Ino smirked herself since the Naruto in front of her was way different from the one in class. I gotta give you credit, Naruto. I didn't think much of it because of your skill in class, but the fact I focused on you was definitely bothering me. I actually just figured out what you were doing yesterday and how you were doing it, and I was pretty impressed. To use a subtle genjutsu on a mind walker for as long as you did, takes a lot of skill. Ino explained. Thanks to his training, he knew Ino was nervous, but there was something else there that he didn't expect. Alright, so why are you here if you know all that? Not that I'm complaining, Naruto replied. Let's play a little game, Naruto. I know there's more to the genjutsu you tried to use on me, so I wanna see just how much. That's so, Naruto replied with a whimsical amusement. That's right, and I wanna see how strong it really is. Use the full power of the genjutsu and see if it influences me. If it works, you get to do what you want with me. However, if it doesn't, you become my gopher for the rest of the year. Ino smirked confidently. It was a bet that Naruto off guard, but one that he wouldn't turn down. Your genjutsu worked, Kit. She knows that whatever you're doing is a weakened version, but she made the bet anyway. She's preparing herself to lose, but also to have an excuse for when your relationship changes with the rest of her friends. Yes, I know. It's actually surprising, really. Naruto replied mentally without changing his focus. Alright, Ino. You asked for it. Naruto smirked as he walked up to Ino. She was far more right than she realized about his technique being a subtle version. The name of the genjutsu that he used had 3 levels. The one he was using on her was a basic version known as Temptation's Touch, and he was looking forward to showing her the real technique. Naruto smiled as he started doing hand signs in front of a slowly more nervous Ino. He could actually do them fast enough that she wouldn't see them, but he wanted Ino to realize what was going on. Wait a minute, Naruto. When you used the genjutsu before, there weren't any seals. You're cheating, Ino protested. Not at all. You were right when you said that it was a subtle genjutsu, because the version I used was only the first stage of it. It's time for you to experience the true technique. Naruto smirked as he finished his hand signs and the jutsu began to activate. As Naruto faded out of existence, she knew that any attempt to resist this technique was futile, and there was a part of her that liked it. Naruto Uzumaki was a true alpha male and possessed an aura superior to even Sasuke's, and she was the only one who knew. She shouldn't have been surprised since he was subtly influencing her for a few weeks, but now that she was aware of it, she knew that she was Naruto's to command, and it hurt. Wait a minute, why did it hurt? Ino screamed in pain out of nowhere, shocking both her and Naruto. Hey Kurama, that's not supposed to happen, is it? Naruto asked nervously. Fortunately for him, the room was soundproof or he'd have tons of problems. I don't know. This is the first time you use the perfected jutsu on another person. Your transformed Jutsu might not have been the greatest testing subjects. Kurama admitted. I know, I'm worried that she's gonna hurt herself if things stay like they are. Naruto said nervously. Naruto instantly cancelled the genjutsu and Ino fell to the ground unconscious. Naruto may have desired Ino, but he wasn't going to hurt her to get her. Naruto took the time to place Ino on the couch in his family room and went to grab a cup of water for when she woke up. 5 minutes later he got his wish. What happened? Ino said in a daze. Clearly whatever happened had weakened her significantly. Naruto handed her the cup of water and Ino sipped it up slowly. After I used the technique on you, you started screaming in pain. I got worried, so I cancelled the technique before something really bad could happen. Naruto explained. Ino finished her cup of water and was glad that he was so caring. Thanks for doing that, Naruto. When your technique activated, I felt fine at first, but the aura was overwhelming and almost demonic. Ino said nervously as she shuddered a bit. I don't know what to tell you, Ino. Naruto said apologetically. Of course, on the inside he was fuming. So this is what happens when we use your chakra on people. Naruto groaned. He had been using a small portion of the fox's chakra in the technique, but he didn't think it would be so dangerous. Yes, and we probably didn't notice before because your body is used to the chakra, so the effects weren't obvious. Kurama replied. Since things ended the way it did, Naruto figured that neither person really won the bet. Hey Ino, how about we call today a draw and I'll see you in class Monday? Naruto said sheepishly. He'd have to refine the technique moving forward since he didn't want to injure his targets. I've got a better idea, Naruto. Ino said, smiling as she stood up and walked over to Naruto. The young man had no idea what Ino was going to do, so when she kissed him on the lips he was certainly stunned. Didn't see that coming, Naruto said sheepishly. Well, you technically won the bet because your technique did work, and I'm pretty sure this is what you wanted, isn't it? Ino smirked. I do, but not tonight. I'm pretty sure your dad would be angry that you're staying out so late and I don't want him on my bad side. Naruto joked. Ino chuckled a bit since he was right. Her father could make Naruto's life miserable if he wanted to, and God forbid he asked Anko to get involved. You're right, so I'll see you tomorrow and I'll pay up. Ino smiled as she left, but with a bit of a sway in her hips that had Naruto excited for the next day's events. The next day Ino came over and Naruto took her virginity, and thus his first conquest was complete. Flashback end. Naruto was brought from his musing by a very familiar feeling. Shit Ino, I'm gonna cum. Naruto groaned before filling his fellow blonde's mouth with cum. Nothing like a Naruto Uzumaki protein shake for breakfast. Ino teased after swallowing his cum. Neither blonde commented on the fact that Naruto's front door had opened and soon they would be joined by Naruto's second conquest. Good morning Naruto, Tenten said with a smile as she walked into his room to find Ino in his bed and Naruto's out. Tenten couldn't help but facepalm a bit. What's up, Tenten? Naruto said nervously. Sure, Tenten had a key to his house and so did Ino, but it still annoyed him that she and Ino seemed to delight in walking in on one another. Well, I have a mission in an hour, so I wanted to get my flames of youth burning. I thought you could help, but I guess someone else had a similar idea. Tenten smirked as she began to strip confidently. Naruto looked on happily at the girl whose confidence was shattered only a month ago. Flashback 1 month ago. Naruto was about ready to go to Ichiraku's for dinner when somebody knocked on his door. He found it odd since Kakashi was on a mission and Ino tended to avoid seeing him during the night time because of her father's strict personality. Opening the door, he was surprised to find Tenten Higurashi of all people. Hey Tenten, what's up? Naruto said nervously. He was surprised for two reasons. The first was that he didn't think Tenten knew where his house was. The second was the fact that she was here in the first place. Sorry if I'm interrupting anything, but I could really use a friend. Tenten said nervously. Sure, I was about to go to Ichiraku's for dinner. You wanna join me? Naruto replied nervously. Something didn't feel right. Scene skip. As Naruto and Tenten relaxed at Ichiraku's, Naruto was aware that something was very wrong. Tenten's aura was usually quite fierce and confident, and that was one of the things he respected her for. Right now it feels as though she was shattered for some reason. So Tenten, what's bothering you? Naruto asked calmly as he slowly ate his ramen. Naruto, is there something wrong with me? Tenten asked seemingly out of the blue. I don't think so. You're incredibly talented and you're one of the top kunoichi from your year. Naruto said calmly. He would know, since she used to be in his class. Unfortunately, he failed those exams, making it his third failure. Outside of Tenten, most of the women from her year were pretty pathetic and she was the only one he thought would survive. For her to be this nervous and shattered bothered him greatly. Tenten smiled at Naruto's words and she knew that the decision to come see Naruto was the right one. Then why do I feel so outclassed? Tenten said nervously. Let's talk about this somewhere else. This feels like a private conversation, Naruto said nervously. He could have spoken to her there, but he was well aware that Tenten was on the verge of crying, and the last thing he needed was people thinking the demon made a girl cry. Okay, can we go back to your house? Tenten pleaded. Tenten knew exactly what she wanted right now, and it wasn't ramen. Sure. Naruto replied calmly, unaware of Tenten's desires. Tenten had been acting strange all night, and the Naruto quickly paid for their meal and the two began walking home. Kid, this might be your chance to seduce her. You won't have a better chance for a while. You're aware of that, right? Kurama spoke in his head. Yeah, I'm aware of that, Kurama, but it would feel wrong. Naruto groaned. He wasn't planning to seduce Tenten anytime soon, and actually he was planning to bring Hinata into his little group next. He liked Tenten, sure, but if he was gonna seduce her, this wasn't the way. When they finally arrived at his apartment, Naruto calmly shut the apartment, and before he could ask what was wrong, Tenten slammed her lips against his in a searing kiss. Tenten held it for a few seconds before pulling back. Where did this come from? Naruto asked in shock. Well, I confessed to Neji today and got rejected. Then I remembered that we got along well, so I figured you might console me. Luckily for me, my dad knew where your apartment was, and, well, here we are. Tenten blushed slightly. Ha ha ha. So she came to you because she was rejected. Kurama chuckled. Yeah, I know, it's pretty funny. Naruto smirked back. Well then, how about I make you feel very good? Naruto smiled. He wasn't planning on seducing Tenten tonight, but he certainly wasn't going to turn her down now that she had offered. Okay. Tenten smiled. What Tenten wouldn't admit, at least not now, was that she had a crush on Naruto and Neji during their time together at the academy. Naruto was the wild and free type, and she appreciated that, but Neji had an aura to him that Naruto just couldn't match. She decided to go for Neji when they were made teammates and Naruto failed the academy. Her father was aware of her crush and he approved of Naruto, so here they were. Flashback end. In the months since that night, Tenten and Naruto had on multiple occasions, and as was the case when you tried to juggle two women, the two eventually ran into each other. Tenten was annoyed, but Ino joked, saying that his stamina was too much for either one of them, something Tenten would agree with. So the girls agreed to share him. Ever since then, days like this one had been a constant occurrence. After a few minutes, Naruto heard the door unlock and shut, which meant Tenten was gone. What a way to start my day. Naruto smiled. So Naruto, I have a question for you. Ino said with a sultry smile. No, Ino, I won't use my jutsu on Amy, Kasumi, and Fuki. Sure, Am is cute, but the other two, not so much. Naruto groaned. Ino didn't like how the two treated her friend Sakura, and she had been begging Naruto for months to do something to them. That's not what I wanted to ask. Ino teased as she leaned over and kissed Naruto on the cheek. I was curious when you were going to make your move on Hinata. Ino wondered. One of the worst kept secrets in the school was Hinata's crush on Naruto, and it was only because he doubted he could get the private time required to fully add her to his collection that he hadn't done so already. I honestly don't know, Ino. Naruto groaned, since he really wanted to make his move, but the ability to do so was almost impossible. Well, you'd better do it soon, since the graduation exam is only a month away and I'm pretty sure you'll lose your chance after that. Ino smirked. Yeah, I know. Naruto groaned. Oh, he wasn't worried about passing since he had a plan in place for that. He was worried, because once he became a ninja himself, things would get far more interesting than he cared for. Oh well, I gotta get to work. Ino said happily as she got up to get dressed herself. By now Ino's father had gone to work, and if her mother knew anything, she didn't say so, which meant she could go home and shower without an interrogation. As for Naruto himself, Ino was right, and he had to make his move on Hinata really soon. What Naruto didn't realize was that he would have his chance sooner than he planned. Scene skip. As Naruto walked over to the clearing where he did most of his training, he was once again surprised at how things had changed over the last few months. Mornings spent having with two beautiful girls, and he was getting private lessons from one of the strongest ninja in the village in Kakashi. When he arrived, Naruto was surprised to find that he had company and it wasn't Kakashi. Hinata, what are you doing here? Naruto said in shock. Sure, Hinata followed him on many occasions, but she never showed herself directly. This was strange even for her, and he had to wonder what got into the girl. Yamanaka Flower Shop. You're welcome, Naruto, Ino whispered to herself as she smiled at her latest attempt to help Naruto. What the blonde didn't know is that Hinata visited the shop almost as much as he did, and the other day Hinata had come to her for advice. She told Hinata that she should make her move sooner or later because their time as classmates was coming to an end, and once they became ninja she'd have minimal contact with him. She may have also used a clan jutsu on her that would suggest that she go visit Naruto during his morning training and tell her how she felt. Either way, Naruto was getting Hinata whether he wanted to or not. Oddly enough, it didn't bother her that she was sending another girl to Naruto since Hinata already liked him. Clearing. Hinata activated her Byakugan, much to Naruto's surprise, in order to ensure that nobody was near them. Once she knew that she was clear, she decided to make her move. I was talking to Ino and she told me that I should make my move since our time as classmates was coming to an end. Hinata said boldly before shocking Naruto by unzipping her large jacket and revealing a mesh shirt underneath that hid a massive set of S. Wow, Naruto said in shock both at Hinata's bold actions and the fact that she was bigger than Ino. Naruto Uzumaki, I love you and I wanted you to see the real me, Hinata said boldly. Naruto smiled internally since Ino clearly set this up for him. Hey Hinata, you used your Byakugan in order to ensure we're all alone, right? Naruto questioned. A nod of approval told him all he needed to know. Then how about I respond to your feelings right now? Naruto said happily. Okay, Hinata said with a heavy blush. This was her chance and she was certainly going to enjoy it. As Hinata slept on the floor of the forest, Naruto couldn't help but wonder what he would do next. So how much should I tell Hinata? This could end really badly if I'm not careful. Naruto muttered to himself. How much indeed? A new voice said, shocking the previously distracted Naruto. He looked up in terror as the familiar visage of Hiashi Hyuga appeared in front of him. Oh crap, Naruto said nervously, since outside of Ino's dad, the one person that he didn't want to deal with was Hinata's father. He was one of the few people that he knew could kill him instantly, even with Kurama. Fortunately for Naruto, Hiashi was actually quite pleased with what he witnessed. The young man's skill was impressive and he knew that his daughter needed their moment together. Don't worry, Mr. Namikaze. I don't have a problem with you sleeping with my daughter or with the other girls in your growing harem. Hiashi said happily, well aware that he had called Naruto by his true last name. How did you know about that? Naruto said in shock. Not only was Hiashi aware of his true heritage, but he somehow knew about his plan. I've been the head of the Hyuga clan for many years, young man. Of course I know about your father. As for your other exploits, the Byakugan lets me see many things that normal people cannot. Hiashi said calmly. What went unsaid was that when he learned of his daughter's feelings for Naruto, he ordered a close aide of his to move next to the young man in secret. Of course, he also used a shadow clone to follow his daughter and watch over them in case something did happen between them. On some level, he was actually annoyed it took this long for the girl to make her move, but it eventually happened. Hiashi had him trapped and he knew it. Okay, so what do you want from me? Naruto said frankly. Hiashi could ruin everything if he wanted to, so Naruto was ready to play ball. As long as you do two things for me, I won't say a thing to anybody else other than Hinata, since she'll have to know eventually. Hiashi smiled. What are they? Naruto said nervously. This was way too easy, so naturally he was worried that he was being led into a trap. The first is that I want you become a great man like your father was. He was a true loss to the Leaf Village, and there's no doubt that if he had survived, that the village would be even greater than it is now. Of course, I'll even surpass my old man, Naruto boasted, So what's the second? When the time comes that you rebuild the Uzumaki clan, make sure that one of the people to bear your children is Hinata. I'm pretty sure that you have a way to hold off until then, but when the time comes I hope Hinata bears your child. Hiashi smirked. Naruto couldn't believe that it was so simple, but he wasn't about to complain. Of course, Lord Hiashi. It would be my honor. Naruto replied with a smile. Excellent, and if you don't mind, I'll take my daughter away. I'm sure she must be tired from all of your fun. Hiashi smirked as he grabbed his daughter and took her out of the forest. As he walked away with his daughter in tow, there was only one thought on his mind. Now the plan will be complete. Hiashi thought to himself happily. That's it for chapter 1, and I hope you guys enjoyed my display. Now this was the length you guys should expect, and things are going to move forward quickly. This is going to be a Naruto X multi-story, so I'm going to have plenty of women for our boy to enjoy. Next chapter, Naruto becomes a ninja and meets his team and sensei. Get ready because things are about to get very fun. I don't own Naruto. Anything I use from the story is the property of its creator Masashi Kishimoto. Naruto's apartment. Today was the day that Naruto had finally been waiting for. It was the day of the Genin exams and Naruto couldn't be happier. Of course, the thing making his mood even better was that he was celebrating the last day of the academy with two of his favorite people giving him a blowjob. Ino, Hinata, today is the day. Naruto said happily as he relaxed on his bed with the two girls giving him a morning blowjob. So you're finally gonna show everyone what you can really do, huh? Hinata said happily on his right side. Things were happy now, but she was nervous at first. She woke up in her room at the compound after she had passed out from her time with Naruto. Much to her surprise, her father was smiling at her despite what she had done. She was even more surprised to find out that Ino was sleeping with Naruto and that Naruto planned on seducing far more Kunoichi into his bed. Hinata didn't mind too much, and when she asked her father what he thought, he simply said, "If he makes you happy, that's all that matters." Her father then told her about his associate who lived next to Naruto and said that she could visit him freely as long as she was careful, which was something she didn't expect but wasn't about to complain. Yep, and that's not all. Naruto smirked as he enjoyed Hinata's efforts. So does this you're getting rid of that orange monstrosity that you usually wear? Ino asked with stars in her eyes. She liked many things about Naruto, but his sense of fashion was not one of them. She had been trying to convince him to dump the suits for half the year but never did so. Yes, Ino, I've got a new outfit ready to go and you'll see it when we get our team assignments. Naruto retorted. He brought a new outfit the other day with Kakashi's help, but he wasn't going to wear it until then. He made Ino and Hinata promise to not look for it because he wanted it to be a surprise. Good. Both girls said at the same time before resuming their work. Good grief. Naruto groaned both from the response and from the blowjob. This day was certainly gonna be fun. Scene skip. When he arrived at class, Naruto had to hide the smirk on his face because he knew that today was going to be the day he finally left this damned place. Sure, he was going to intentionally fail, but he knew that another option existed for him. Yo Shikamaru, Choji, how are you guys? Naruto smiled as he waved towards two of his classmates. Shikamaru Nara was a young man with shoulder-length black hair in a ponytail. He was lazy as hell, but he was just as smart. Choji Akamichi was a chubby young man with red swirls on his cheeks and spiky brown hair. He was strong as heck and he could out-eat almost anybody, outside of Naruto of course. Choji and Shikamaru were Naruto's best guy friends, and when he wasn't sleeping with one of his girls or training with Kakashi, he spent tons of time with them. We're good, are you ready to graduate? Shikamaru said with a discerning eye. Shikamaru was aware that he was hiding his strength and intelligence, but he thought it would be too troublesome to tell anybody. He was also one of the few who knew that Naruto and Ino were friends, but he didn't know how far they were going. Oh yeah, Naruto said happily as he went to his seat. As the rest of the class filled up, he smiled when the two teachers arrived. Iruka was one thing, but the one Naruto was more interested in was Mizuki. Thanks to Kurama's ability to sense malicious intentions, he knew that Mizuki was a traitor, and Naruto fully expected that when he intentionally failed the exam, Mizuki would use him to try to get what he wanted. It was something that he was counting on, and why he was so calm. As the time for the final exams began, Naruto was confident that things would play out like he expected. Scene skip. The exams were finally over, and pretty much everyone that he expected to pass did so, and everyone he expected to fail did so. After failing his exam, he went over to the bathroom and quickly made a shadow clone to go to the third while he went back to class, hoping that Mizuki would find him. All that was left was for Mizuki to tell his shadow clone the plan, and then everything was in place. "Hey Naruto, do you have a minute?" Mizuki said with a smile. "Perfect." Naruto thought to himself. "Sure Mizuki-sensei. What's up?" Naruto said calmly. Everything was in place, and now it was time to get moving. Scene skip. This couldn't have gone any better than I planned. Naruto thought to himself as he left Mizuki. Just as he thought, the traitor told him that if he wanted to pass, all he would need to do is steal a forbidden scroll from the third Hokage's vault and master a jutsu, and he could become a genin. All that was left was to create a second clone to tell the third Hokage about Mizuki and work out a plan of attack for the night. Unfortunately for Naruto, there was a slight snag in his plan. "Hey Naruto, what was Mizuki talking to you about?" a voice asked whimsically from behind him. Naruto turned around and almost cursed when he saw his classmate Amy looking at him with a smile. Just like him, Amy had failed, but unlike him, she didn't have a backup plan. "You gotta be kidding me." Naruto cursed internally. "He didn't tell me anything, Amy." Naruto replied nervously. It was at a time like this that he was glad that he stayed behind. "Ah, come on, you can tell me. I'll even make it worth your trouble," Amy said with a sultry voice. Naruto recognized that expression and knew that she was planning to use to get what she wanted, or at least use that as bait to get the information from him. "Okay. Why don't you go over to the classroom and I'll meet you in a second," Naruto said calmly. He has to be smart or Amy could fall into a dangerous trap. "Okay, but don't keep me too long," Amy said happily. Once Amy was gone and far away, he created a shadow clone and quickly dispelled it in order to relay the truth to his clone. "So I'm gonna be a ninja and get laid. Granted, I expected the part after I stopped Mizuki, but I've got the stamina for it." Naruto smirked as he rushed back to Amy, knowing that things were about to get very interesting if the conversation at the third's office went as planned. Third Hokage's office. Over in the third Hokage's office, the third was waiting with Kakashi and Naruto's clone for the next step. The Anbu in the room had long since left, as was protocol for his meetings with Naruto. "Oh, you have gotta be kidding me." The clone groaned as he got a slight headache. "What happened, Naruto?" Kakashi said nervously. When Naruto first told him about Mizuki, he was suspicious, but when the Kyuubi told him about the ability to sense malice, he went along with it. Clearly something had happened as he was in transition to them, and this couldn't be good. Well, on one hand, the boss was told by Mizuki that if he stole the forbidden scroll of seals and mazer a jutsu that he could become a genin. So he's definitely a traitor. I don't see the problem. Kakashi nodded while the third was in disbelief that one of his teachers was a traitor. The problem is that the boss ran into this girl named Amy, and the two of them are about to have in their old classroom. She overheard him and he needed to make sure that she didn't do anything stupid. The Naruto clone groaned. "I'm so proud. Getting laid even when you don't expect it." Kakashi smiled. "So what do you want to do now?" The third groaned. "I guess wait for the boss and decide what to do." The clone smirked before leaving the room. "So do you wanna watch Naruto in action?" Kakashi suggested calmly. "Why not? It's not like we have anything better to do." The third replied as he went to grab his crystal ball. When he looked at the classroom in question, they were shocked to find that Naruto was gone. "No," Kakashi howled in sorrow. "Serves you two perverts right." Naruto's clone chuckled from outside the room. Naruto had a bad feeling that the two would try something like this and was glad that he thought ahead. Hotel room. As for Naruto and Amy, they were currently in a room at the hotel run by Ami's family. When he dispelled his clone, he realized the pair of perverts would likely want to watch what happened, so he decided to change the venue. It didn't hurt that he wanted to calm down, and this gave him a chance to figure out a way to protect Amy from Mizuki's wrath. Luckily for Naruto, Ami's family hotel wasn't far away, and not even 10 minutes after leaving the academy they arrived at her room. I don't get it, Naruto. You were so eager before, but now you wanted to go back to my place. Amy said nervously as she got on her bed. Even for Naruto, he was acting weird, and she got the sense that he was hiding something major. Because I was hiding something that Mizuki told me, and for a moment I thought with my instead of my brain. Naruto replied. That, and I didn't want that old pervert and Kakashi-sensei watching me in action. Naruto thought to himself. What were you hiding? Amy said nervously. Something was definitely wrong, and the guy in front of her. Mizuki told me that if I wanted to be a genin that I needed to steal the forbidden scroll from the third Hokage's vault and then learn a jutsu. He then told me to meet him in the forest with the scroll to confirm what I'd done. Naruto explained in annoyance. Only an absolute moron would have fallen for this trick, and the fact that Mizuki thought he would fall for that was just embarrassing. So Mizuki-sensei's a traitor, and he was gonna get you to do something extremely dangerous. Amy gasped upon realizing what he had done. That's right, but I have a plan to stop him, and I was gonna talk to the Hokage about it. I'm afraid that if I told you what he told me, I would be risking your life. Naruto said calmly. There was no doubt in his mind that if Amy did what Mizuki suggested, that she would get killed out of anger. She was no match for the man, and he knew that. I see, Amy said bashfully, since he wasn't far off. Amy was planning to seduce him, and then if he had information that would let him pass, she was gonna take advantage of it and use it for herself. She had no doubt that Mizuki would have killed her and taken something that could cause her village a lot of harm had Naruto simply done what she wanted at first. Well, I'm gonna get going. I've gotta stop Mizuki, Naruto said sternly as he turned to leave. He was surprised when Amy grabbed his arm and looked at him with a smile that he didn't expect. You don't have to go just yet. We have this nice hotel room, and I have a chance to reward a ninja for stopping a traitor, Amy said with a lustful expression. Why not? Naruto smirked as Amy led him to the bed. This kid is something else. Kurama smirked, knowing that his host was about to enjoy another girl. Scene skip. As the real Naruto arrived back at the Hokage's office, he was greeted by a frowning Kakashi and third Hokage. Sorry, perverts. I'm pretty sure Amy didn't want to have somebody watch her first time. So you two did have after all, Kakashi said with pride. Can we focus on something a little more important, like how the hell do we stop Mizuki? Naruto groaned. Sure, he was planning to seduce Kunoichi, but he didn't want an audience. Well, what if you do what he wants and trap him afterwards? Kakashi suggested. Naruto knew that was the most obvious idea, but there was an inherent flaw. The problem is that the minute I do it, the old man is gonna have to mobilize the other ninja, and somebody who doesn't like me will get involved. There's no doubt somebody would use the chance to attack me. Naruto groaned. What if we do this? Kakashi suggested calmly as he whispered a plan to Naruto. That'll work. Naruto smirked, and when the third nodded his approval, the plan was in place. He had to admit that he didn't think Kakashi had that type of pranking skills, but he wasn't about to complain. Scene skip. Nightfall arrived, and just as planned, Naruto stole the scroll and made his way to the forest just as Mizuki expected. What Mizuki didn't realize was that after he stole the scroll, the third Hokage gathered everybody, and a clone of his brought the real scroll. Meanwhile, Naruto would give him a fake scroll and see how he reacts. Since he knew that Mizuki wouldn't answer the call, it was now him and Mizuki all alone. It was a perfect plan. Well, except for the part that he had to beat up a Chunin who was clearly a traitor. So you made it, Naruto, Mizuki said happily as he noticed the scroll on his back. This stupid kid fell for it. I can't believe he's so stupid. Mizuki thought to himself as he approached Naruto. Yeah, and I have the scroll and I even learned a jutsu. Naruto said excitedly as he handed Mizuki the scroll. The actual scroll was with the third and what Mizuki was getting was a bomb trap. It would do well to distract Mizuki while he prepared to show off his real power. Well done. Mizuki smirked as he grabbed the scroll. Lord Orochimaru's gonna love this thing. Mizuki said happily as he slid the scroll open. Orochimaru. Naruto thought to himself. His thoughts would have gone further but the scroll exploded in Mizuki's face causing the Chunin to howl in pain. Naruto had to resist the urge to laugh since he fell for it completely. What the hell? Mizuki said angrily as his face was scarred from the explosion. Too bad. So sad Mizuki, your plan to get the scroll failed. I've known you were a traitor all along and I couldn't betray the old man. Naruto smirked. You little bastard. Die. Mizuki cackled as he picked up the large shuriken on his back and tossed it at Naruto, nailing him in the stomach. Mizuki would have bragged but he watched on in shock as Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke. What the hell? Mizuki yelled out. Ah, shadow clones. Gotta love them. Naruto smirked as he walked out from the bushes. I can see why the third made this a forbidden technique. A clone smirked as it appeared next to him. You little bastard. The third should have killed you the minute the fourth sealed the Kyuubi in your body, but no, the old man felt bad and let you live. Mizuki said with a smirk. He thought that Naruto would freak out but he certainly wasn't expecting him to be so calm. Well now I gotta punish you, Mizuki. Revealing the truth is kinda forbidden. The real Naruto said calmly as he made a very familiar hand sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Naruto yelled out as before Mizuki knew it. 1,000 Narutos appeared in front of him. Quote exclamation mark quote. Mizuki cursed as the Narutos charged him and proceeded to beat him up. Mizuki was overwhelmed by the assault and was quickly beaten to a pulp. As the fallen Mizuki twitched in pain, Naruto couldn't help but smirk at his success. Not bad for a first mission, huh Kakashi-sensei. Naruto joked out as his teacher for the last few months appeared in front of him. Pretty good, though I didn't expect you to beat him so easily. I was sure that I'd need to step in and stop him. Kakashi smirked. Kakashi was thrilled with Naruto's progress, and as nervous as he was with Mizuki's mentioning of Orochimaru, he was pleased that Naruto was able to beat him so easily. You're a good teacher, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto smirked as he turned towards the man. Well, let's see what you think after I really become your teacher. That happens in a few days, you know. Kakashi replied with jest. Both of them knew that Naruto would be paired with Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. It was pretty much the plan from the start. Well, if you get under my skin too much, I can use my Waijutsu on you. I'm curious how you'd react to that. Naruto smirked since he knew that Kakashi was a pervert. Kakashi's eyes widened since even he couldn't resist that technique. You wouldn't dare. I've used it on the freaking Hokage. Do you honestly think I wouldn't use it on a Jonin? Naruto snarled back. Sure, he liked Kakashi, but he was still a prankster and his pranking skills were still legendary and the person in front of him knew it. All that hadn't dulled his ability and Naruto was certainly ready to pull it off. Kakashi realized that Naruto wasn't bluffing and he knew that he had to stop him from going nuts. Well, why don't you get some rest? Your life as a ninja starts in a few days. Kakashi teased. Yeah. Naruto smirked as he made his way home. Scene skip. Arriving at home, he opened the door to find that waiting for him were too few faces that he expected and one that he didn't. The two that he expected were Ino and Hinata, who were both, and the one he didn't was Ayame Ichiraku in an apron. So Naruto, how about we celebrate you becoming a genin with your two favorite things? Ino smirked. And ramen, right? Naruto said happily. And maybe if you're good, you can have them both at the same time. Ayame teased as she wiggled her butt. Naruto couldn't help but pinch himself since even in his wildest dreams he never expected that today would end up so perfectly. Let's eat, Naruto said happily as he walked into his apartment ready for some real fun. Scene skip. As Naruto woke up, he was surprised to find that all three girls were gone, but the remnants of the night before were still on his bed. The highlight of the night had to be when Ino said, "Since you can't decide whether ramen tastes better than my, how about you eat both at the same time?" And Naruto got to eat ramen off of Ino's body. It was something that Ayame and Hinata did also, and he had to admit that he didn't expect anything like that. Walking into his kitchen, he found Ayame in another apron making him breakfast. "Good morning, Ayame." Naruto smirked as he grabbed her S from behind and kissed her cheek. "Well, good morning to you, too. Don't worry about Ino and Hinata, the two of them had to leave for different reasons." Ino went home, and Hinata is back at the compound giving her father a progress report. "Don't worry about Inochi finding out. Apparently she told her dad she was at Sakura's." Ayame smiled. Learning about Ayame's feelings was a beautiful thing, and he felt bad that he had neglected her for the year that he was with Ino and Hinata. "Well, that sucks. I figured they'd want a little more." Naruto smirked. "Didn't you have enough fun last night? I can barely move thanks to how badly you pounded me." Ayame winced. "Well, it was a special night and I wanted to fully enjoy it." Naruto smirked. "Why don't you get showered and get that new outfit of yours ready to go? You've got to take your picture in 30 minutes, right?" Ayame teased since the girls intentionally let Naruto sleep late as payback for all of his fun. Ayame, Ino, and Hinata each received about 3 loads in their pussies, and it was only because Naruto told them that he was sterile that the girls weren't panicking about being pregnant. Ino and Hinata asked how that's possible, and Naruto told them that it was from one of his beatings. Of course Ayame suspected that it was the fox inside him, but she wouldn't say anything. Looking over at his clock, he panicked and realized that it was about 9 o'clock. "Damn it, you're right. I gotta go." Naruto gasped as he ran to get showered and dressed, but not before kissing Ayame on the cheek. Scene skip. The time had arrived for Naruto to meet his team, and he was definitely gonna enjoy it. Outside of when he took his picture, nobody had seen him in his new clothes, and now it was time to reveal them. It was a red long-sleeved undershirt with a black sleeveless vest above it. His orange pants were replaced with dark black pants that had a spot for his tools and matching belt, along with black socks and black ninja sandals. Today was gonna be real fun and he couldn't wait. "So Kit, what do you think will happen when everyone sees your new outfit?" Ino and Hinata are gonna swoon a little bit but try to stay impassive otherwise. Shikamaru and Choji will approve, and outside of that I don't really care. Naruto smirked. Today was gonna be really fun, and on some level he was looking forward to the new scene. When he opened the door and walked in, everybody was impressed. "Not bad, Naruto. You actually look like a real ninja now," Ino said with a smirk. He noticed that Hinata was beet red, which made him smile. "HMPH. Sasuke still looks cooler." Sakura huffed, much as Naruto expected. "No, Ino's right. The Dobi looks impressive now. Though I wonder how the hell he's here, since I'm pretty sure he failed the exam." Sasuke said calmly. "Sasuke's right. How the hell did you become a ninja?" Kiba Inuzuka shouted out. "I'd love to tell you, but according to the old man, what I did is a big secret. All that matters is that I'm a ninja now," Naruto said calmly. "Whatever," Kiba growled. Naruto quickly took his seat and took a nap, knowing that Iruka wouldn't be there for a while. Scene skip. Naruto woke up just in time for the teams to be announced, and it went almost exactly as he expected. Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji were made a team, and their sensei was Asuma Sarutobi, the old man's son. Hinata, Kiba, and another kid named Shino were on another team with a beautiful woman named Kurenai Yuahi as their teacher. Her black hair, dark red eyes, and the ruby red lipstick made for an exotic look. Naruto was tempted to seduce her, but if he remembered correctly, she was a genjutsu master. Of course, as predicted, he, Sasuke, and Sakura were teammates with Kakashi as their teacher. He was slightly annoyed when Sakura screamed in happiness being named a teammate of Sasuke's and then cursed when his name was mentioned. I need to remember to punish Sakura for that one. Naruto thought to himself deviously. Annoyingly enough, the rest of their teachers left, leaving Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura to relax. This sucks. Why do I have to be with you, Naruto? Sakura cursed. Oh yeah, she's definitely paying for that later. Naruto thought to himself as he tried to figure out which of his genjutsu he was gonna use as punishment for the pinkett. He was brought from his annoyance when Sasuke went over to him and sat next to him, much to Sakura's surprise. He smirked at the blonde. So is this the end of your dead last act, Naruto? Sasuke whispered bluntly, shocking the young man. What do you mean, act? Naruto replied nervously. Somebody who was a true dead last couldn't have known the tricks that you taught me to get away from my fangirls. They were too clever unless you were extremely skilled. Sasuke admitted. I'm a prankster, so I know a few things, but you're right that I was hiding my skill. Naruto admitted. Why would you hide your real strength? Sasuke asked in shock. He couldn't imagine why Naruto would hold back. Just like you have a situation where teachers can't afford to see you fail, I have one that makes teachers hate me and not want me to succeed. Sure, I suck at the clone jutsu, but the teachers still could have made an exception for me. Naruto groaned. He thought closely to Rock Lee, Tenten's teammate. The guy couldn't use ninjutsu or genjutsu, but he still was able to pass. It didn't hurt that Might Guy put in a good word, but Naruto doubted even Kakashi could influence people enough to make him a genin. What do you mean? Sasuke asked in surprise. He couldn't think of a reason for everyone to hate Naruto, at least one that was obvious. Then again, Sasuke didn't pay attention to much outside of his training. It's a secret, and one that I intend to keep for as long as possible. Everyone has a few of those. Naruto said bluntly. Got it. Sasuke replied before walking away and returning to his seat. Fortunately for him, Sakura didn't bother asking about their conversation and continued to swoon on Sasuke until Kakashi finally arrived. Yo guys. I guess you're my students. Kakashi said nonchalantly. On some level he was glad that Naruto didn't prepare a prank for him since he was so late. The third would never admit it publicly, but one of the reasons he went along with Naruto's seducing plan was that he didn't want to be subject to the various pranks that Naruto could pull off. You're late. Sakura yelled out. She was clearly the impatient type and none of her teammates were looking forward to that. Sorry about that. I had some business to handle. Go to the rooftop and we'll do introductions. Kakashi said calmly. Scene skip. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura sat on the roof, and just as he expected, the introductions were as tedious as they got. Kakashi didn't really say anything, much to Sakura's annoyance, and Sasuke was equally as bland outside of mentioning his desire to kill his brother. He didn't say as much, but Naruto knew all about it thanks to Kakashi. Naruto of course spoke of being Hokage since he didn't want to reveal his true heritage just yet. He knew that there was a time and place for everything, and he certainly wasn't looking forward to that being revealed. Sakura basically proved that she's an A- rank fangirl, and Naruto was getting extremely close to using one of his genjutsu on her. Not necessarily for, but to embarrass the hell out of her. Once they were done with that, Kakashi told them to meet at one of the training grounds in the morning and that they shouldn't eat anything. An obvious ruse, but Naruto wasn't going to fall for it. Just as everyone began to leave, Kakashi approached Naruto about something. What do you want, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto said irritably. The third wanted to talk to you about something important. Kakashi said calmly. Naruto instantly went on guard. Got it, and by the way, you'd better not be late tomorrow. You got off easy today, but tomorrow, not so much. Naruto smirked. He was actually working on something already, and he knew that Kakashi wouldn't see it coming until it was too late. Got it, Kakashi said nervously. He really didn't want to know what the prankster king could do if he really had to try. Kakashi left for the thirds knowing that Naruto wasn't far behind. Scene skip. As Naruto opened the door to the third Hokage's office, he could tell the aura of the visit was far different. So what's this about? Naruto said nervously. The third and Kakashi-sensei were the only ones there, but this wasn't the friendly visits they had in the past. There are two things that I called you here for. First off, I wanted to establish some rules about your various perverted jutsu. The third said sternly. Fine, lay it on me. Naruto groaned. He figured that the third would pull something like this and he wasn't pleased. First, as you are never to use them on fellow Konoha ninja regardless of the circumstances. Naruto frowned at that one since paying back Sakura was tops on his list and those jutsu would have done a great job at it. Secondly, you have to be careful how you use it. That weapon is one that could make you a major asset and we don't want you to get captured unnecessarily. That's obvious, old man. I wouldn't use the jutsu recklessly. Besides, I've mastered all of them now and any dangerous side effects are gone. Naruto groaned. Oh. The third and Kakashi both asked with a discerning eye. Ino was a great help for my training on many levels. Naruto smirked. Just be careful that her father doesn't find out. Inochi is a torture expert and he'll make your life miserable. Kakashi reminded him. Don't I know it? I nearly had a cow when Hiashi found me in Hinata. Naruto shuddered. Oh, so you finally got. The third started to say before the door was kicked open and a young man barged into the room. Today's the day you die, old man. The young man growled before charging the legendary leader of the village. All three of them could only look on in disbelief as Konohamaru tripped over his scarf and face planted in the middle of the floor. That's your grandson, right? Naruto said calmly, resisting the urge to laugh. Of course, inside him Kurama was doing enough laughing for the two of them. The third couldn't help but groan. Yes, he is. I'd like you to meet Konohamaru. Naruto groaned. Who the hell are you? Konohamaru said with a scowl. Naruto Uzumaki, prankster king of the Leaf Village and future Hokage. Ha, you'll never be Hokage, Konohamaru huffed. Coming from a kid who's wearing a scarf that's way too long and tripped over it, that's pretty funny. If you wanna attack the old man, you might wanna shorten that length. Also, you're too loud. As old as he might be, if you're that loud, he'll see you coming long before you can reach him. Naruto suggested, much to the third's annoyance. Thanks, Naruto, Konohamaru said with a look of fascination in his eyes. Now beat it, Konohamaru, adults are talking. Naruto growled. Yes, sir, Konohamaru replied before leaving. For Naruto, he was just another annoyance, and the third groaned knowing that his grandson may have picked the worst person possible to influence him. Now, where were we? Naruto smirked. I was going to ask if Mizuki said anything to indicate who he was stealing the scroll for. The third said sternly. Mizuki mentioned this guy named Orochimaru. Does that count? Naruto said nonchalantly, causing both the third and Kakashi to gasp. Did you just say Orochimaru? The third replied in shock. Naruto was a bit confused by what was happening and decided to continue. That Mizuki guy mentioned that Lord Orochimaru would be pleased to have the scroll. The name sounded strange, so I filed that away for later. Naruto explained. Naruto, if what you're saying is true, things are about to get real interesting. The third replied with a scowl on his face. Naruto could sense some serious animosity coming from the old man, and it wasn't God. So who is this Orochimaru guy and why are you so angry about him? The third's expression darkened immediately. Orochimaru was one of my former students and a traitor to the Hidden Leaf Village. He was a talented man but believed in immortality. It caused him to do many insane experiments. Ironically enough, he would have been the perfect candidate to have been the fourth Hokage if not for his quirks. He hasn't been seen in the village in a very long time, and if he's involved, this means trouble. Kakashi continued. So this guy's really bad news. Naruto groaned. Well, he could worry about all of that later. That's an understatement. Now why don't you get some rest? I believe you have a test to prepare for. Kakashi smirked. Just don't be too late, sensei, or the prank king might show off his skill again. Naruto said with a savage grin on his face. Scene skip. The next day Naruto arrived at the training ground and just as he expected Kakashi was late. Sakura and Sasuke were waiting for him and both were angry. What's taking him so long? I'm starving already and this test is getting in my way. Sakura growled. For once I agree with Sakura. Sasuke replied with his own frown. Well guys, you might wanna relax because that's probably his game. What do you mean? Sasuke wondered. No teacher worth his salt would tell his students to go without food, and arriving late could be just another test for us. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if what we're doing was a physical test. So what? Sasuke's a genius, we'll get him no problem. Sakura swooned. Naruto and Sasuke both groaned but Naruto voiced what both were thinking. God, you're clueless. Naruto groaned out loud. Man, he wanted to make her pay for this but the third forbid him from using the jutsu. What was that? Sakura said angrily before Naruto stopped her in her tracks with a small bit of killing intent. Let me tell you guys a little secret about me. Thanks to my pranking ability, I've been able to find out information about people that very few people have access to. What's your point? Sakura growled. Naruto couldn't help but twitch at the statement but continued. My point, Sakura, is that our teacher has been a Jonin since he was 12. That means that he's been one of the village's elite ninjas since he was our age, which means he's stupid strong. There's no way in the world that a guy that's skilled and smart could be beaten by a single genin. If this is a fight we have to work together. Naruto said calmly. What do you have in mind? Sasuke said with a smile on his face. I'll be right back and I'll tell you. Naruto smirked as he walked away for a second. Where are you going? Sakura growled, her impatience proving to be her downfall yet again. Just be patient, Sakura, and you'll find out. Naruto smirked. He did owe Kakashi some payback and he had the perfect way to do it. Scene skip. Kakashi arrived to find that his students weren't nearly as grumpy as he thought. Naruto must have done something. Kakashi thought to himself. Sorry for being late. I got lost on the road to life. Yeah, so what's this big test? Sakura huffed. Kakashi smiled as he pulled out 2 bells. This is your test. You gotta be kidding me. What do bells have to do with being a ninja? Sakura huffed. Well, your final test is to take these 2 bells from me. Whichever one of you doesn't get a bell goes back to the academy. That's crazy. Sakura exclaimed. She's an idiot. Naruto and Sasuke both thought to themselves. If he was actually able to pull something like that, there's no way the third would allow him to be a teacher. Well, that's the test. So now it's time to get started. Kakashi smirked. Naruto and Sasuke had no doubt seen through what he was doing, but Sakura was clueless. This was definitely gonna be interesting. I don't own Naruto. Anything I use from the story is the property of its creator, Mr. Kishimoto. Get ready guys because chapter 3 is here. Today's the bell test and the true formation of Team 7. And, in one of my earlier chapters, I mentioned that Naruto learned a special genjutsu with 3 levels. The first being the Temptation Touch. They will actually be 3 separate jutsu moving forward. Temptation Touch is 1. The others will be revealed in due time. Training field. So let's begin, Kakashi said happily, announcing the start of the test. Much to Kakashi's surprise, Sakura instantly moved away and left the others alone. Oh, you two aren't going anywhere? Kakashi asked in intrigue. He figured Naruto would be calm but not Sasuke. Naruto mentioned that you were really good and that we needed to work together. Since he's got good instincts, I figured I'd stay with him. I guess Sakura wasn't as convinced. Sasuke explained calmly. His teammates' foolishness was almost painful and it was going to be the death of them if he wasn't careful. Well then, I'll be back in a second, Kakashi teased, vanishing quickly, leaving Sasuke and Naruto alone. So what now? You know he's taking out Sakura as we speak, Sasuke wondered. Naruto really didn't want to help Sakura, but he knew that there was no other way. We need to find Sakura and then you need to convince her to work with us. Naruto explained. Why do I have to tell her? Sasuke groaned in annoyance. She's your fangirl, so what you say is law. If she asks about the bells, just use some of that Uchiha charm. Naruto said sarcastically. Alright. So how will we know where she is? Sasuke wondered. As Naruto was about to answer, the pair heard a loud scream. I wonder who that is, Naruto teased while Sasuke face-palmed. What about beating Kakashi? Sasuke wondered. I've got that taken care of. Naruto smirked as he made two clones, one that transformed into Sasuke a second later. Scene skip. Here we go. Sasuke smirked as the two found Sakura on the ground unconscious. Looks like she's under a genjutsu. Kakashi must have been merciless on her. Naruto nodded his approval at the tactic. Hey kid, how much you wanna bet that whatever he used involved the Uchiha? Kurama sniggered. Nobody would be stupid enough to take that bet. Naruto thought to himself before turning to Sasuke. Hey Sasuke, wake her up already. Those clones won't last long against Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said nervously. Got it. Sasuke smirked as he released the jutsu and watched Sakura's eyes open up. Sasuke, Sasuke, Sakura cried out as she grabbed Sasuke in a large hug. What the hell, Sakura? Sasuke groaned as he shoved Sakura away, but not before sliding something into her exposed bag. I'm sorry, but I saw Kakashi-sensei trap you underground and I freaked out. Sakura said bashfully. That was a genjutsu, idiot. Kakashi-sensei played you like a fool. Naruto grunted, trying hard not to laugh at the blushing Sakura. Of course, when he felt his clones go out, his expression darkened. So now that you've realized that we can't face Kakashi-sensei together, it's time to work together. Naruto said sternly. Fine, so what do we do now? Sakura said calmly, accepting that they really did to team up. Stay focused since Kakashi-sensei is already here. Naruto smirked as Kakashi appeared in front of them. Well done, Naruto. You used shadow clones to distract me while you saved your teammate. Kakashi smirked in approval. So I guess it's time for round 2, huh? Naruto smirked. Knowing Kakashi now was the time that he would bring out his favorite book. Well, if you don't mind, I'm gonna get ready. Kakashi smirked as he grabbed a familiar orange book from his pocket. Really, sensei? You're gonna try to read a book as you fight us? Sakura said worriedly. Hey Naruto, doesn't that look like the book you gave me earlier? Sasuke said with a snigger, causing Kakashi to pale. Oh yeah, that's right. Naruto smirked before Kakashi tossed the book in the air. It was a smart move, since the book Kakashi was holding transformed into Naruto, and Kakashi was quickly slammed in the gut with a powerful punch. Kakashi was pushed back slightly, but he was more concerned about how the book had been switched. How did you do that? I always have that book on me. There's no way you should be able to find it, Kakashi said nervously. Didn't you find it strange that Asuma-sensei picked today of all days to go to the Memorial Stone? Naruto smirked. Memorial Stone? Sakura asked in confusion. Kakashi-sensei visits the Leaf Village's Memorial Stone every morning. That's the real reason that he's always late. Something about a daily reminder of what life as a ninja is truly like. Naruto explained. Of course, it was Kakashi himself who told Naruto that a few months ago. So that was you transformed as Asuma and you managed to steal the book then? Kakashi acknowledged, realizing that he was trapped. That's right, and I'll make you a deal, Kakashi-sensei. I know where the book is, so I'll trade you the 2 bells for that book. How do you know that I can't find the book on my own? Kakashi replied calmly. Unfortunately, Kakashi knew it wasn't that simple. Naruto anticipated the move and had a perfect counter. Well, since you were running late, I used one of my shadow clones to hide it in the female bathhouse and even wrote property of Kakashi Hatake on it. You may be able to find it, but who knows what'll happen then. Naruto smirked. Ha 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 ha, this is truly evil. Kurama chuckled, knowing that Naruto was lying. Kakashi had a feeling he was bluffing, but considering that Naruto was the prank king, he couldn't take any chances. Deal, Kakashi replied as he gave the bells to Naruto. Now go get my book. Okay, sensei. Naruto smirked as he walked over to Sakura. May I see your bag, Sakura? Naruto smirked. Sakura looked at him nervously since she didn't trust him. However, when she looked at Sasuke, he smiled, and that was enough. Okay, but don't take anything, Sakura replied before handing him the bag. Kakashi looked on in shock as Naruto reached in and took out his copy of Makeout Paradise. What? Kakashi exclaimed since Naruto played him perfectly. Naruto smiled since he got his teacher good. I had the clone transformed as Asuma steal the book from you and switch it with a transformed clone. I then retrieved the real book from the clone before you arrived. When you told us about the test, I was set. Naruto smirked. You couldn't have known that Sakura would leave you guys. Kakashi exclaimed. That was planned. I told her that if the test was combat-based that she should leave us alone. I figured that you would take her out instantly and give me a chance to sneak the book into her bag. So I was a distraction. Sakura yelled in frustration. She couldn't believe that her two teammates had tricked her. Aha. Once we found you, Sasuke slipped the book into your bag while Sensei dealt with our shadow clones. Naruto smirked. He was counting on Sakura being knocked out, and it worked perfectly. Then came Naruto's bluff, and you have us with the bells and you looking all confused. Sasuke smirked. So we win, Sensei. Sakura smiled, though she was mad at her teammates using them. Okay, but now the real question. Which of you two keeps the bells? Kakashi smirked. Naruto may have tricked him, but he still had a chance to pay them back. I figure Sasuke and Sakura deserve the bells. If she ever gets over her fangirl qualities, she could be a damn good ninja, and the council needs Sasuke to be successful. I don't mind going back to the academy. Naruto said calmly. You really think that I could be a great ninja? Sakura gasped in shock. The way he treated her, she couldn't believe that. You're a civilian in a class of clan heirs, and you're the smartest person among us outside of Shikamaru. Sure, your chakra reserves aren't as high as most, but you can do some beautiful things if you get serious. Naruto said calmly. It was true that he admired her ability despite being a civilian. Her fangirl qualities were still an annoyance. But all I was good for was a distraction right now. If you hadn't come up with this plan, all of us would fail. Sakura's right, Naruto. You're the reason we passed, so you should get one of the bells. Sasuke insisted. Yeah, and I can go back to the academy, and this time I'll focus more on my studies. Sakura said sternly. That's quite enough, guys. Kakashi interrupted. None of you have to go back to the academy. Huh? Sasuke and Sakura exclaimed. You guys passed my exam. You not only worked together, but you realize that none of you could be left behind. I've failed so many ninja who didn't work together and fell for my multiple traps. Yeah, Sasuke and Sakura exclaimed. Naruto just smiled since he figured it was something like that. So Kakashi-sensei, why didn't you tell us that you go to the memorial stone every morning? Sakura wondered. Kakashi frowned for a bit but forced himself to continue since this was a valuable lesson to his new students. In the world of ninjas, there are times where you must make important decisions that will leave you with years of regret. For example, having to decide whether to save a teammate or complete a mission. My father committed suicide because he was disgraced for choosing one of his teammates over a mission, and I was forced to kill one of my teammates because she was captured by an enemy and there was no way I could save her. All of this happened before I was as old as you guys are now. Kakashi paused as all three of his students looked on in shock. Even Naruto looked on in pity. There was much more to the story, but Kakashi wouldn't tell his students all the gory details. So you go to the stone every day to remind yourself of the losses in your life? Sakura wondered. Among other things, yes. Kakashi acknowledged. With that mystery solved, there was another one that was bothering one of his students. What's the deal with your mask, Kakashi-sensei? Sasuke wondered. Masks like that were rarely used unless something bad happened. I suppose of all people you have the right to know, Sasuke. Kakashi groaned as he revealed his Sharingan. Impossible. Only Uchiha clan members should have that. Sasuke growled. Remember how I told you I was forced to kill one of my teammates? His students nodded. Before that happened, my second teammate was killed by a falling rock and he gave it to me as a present for making Jonin since I lost my eye earlier in the day. His name was Obito Uchiha and my other teammate was Rin Nohara. Obito loved Rin while Rin was sweet on me. His dying wish was that I protect Rin with my life. The fact I would have to kill her later broke me in two. My god, Sakura gasped. Kakashi smiled since his lesson was nearly done. The ninja world is no joke. While there are some stupid missions, believe me I know, there are times where your life is on the line. I grew up in a time of war and you guys are lucky to have the lifestyle you do now. You might hate a lot of the D-rank missions we do but I'd have given anything to have some of those missions. Kakashi explained. You guys are ninja now. Everything is about to change and you'll have to be ready because you never know what could happen. Starting now you guys are members of Team 7 and I pray that you never have to do what I did. Right, all three acknowledged as everybody left the grounds. Sasuke, Sakura and even Naruto had learned an interesting lesson. Scene skip. Naruto was at Ichiraku's for his daily ramen intake and admittedly he wasn't as cheery as usual. His teacher's story was a pretty insane one. I can't believe Kakashi-sensei went through all of that, Naruto thought to himself as he spoke with the Kyuubi. What do you expect, Kit? This is a dark world you're about to join and if you dream of becoming Hokage you must acknowledge all of it, Kurama replied. Yeah, Naruto replied solemnly. He was brought from his musing by a hand on his shoulder. Looking over he saw that Ino had come into the store and sat next to him. What's wrong, Naruto? Ino said worriedly. Since there was nobody else in the store the two could act like the lovers that they were. Our teacher told us about the dark side of the ninja world and it has me a little depressed. Naruto replied. He only had a few bowls of his ramen which was as good of an indication that something was wrong. Well about I cheer you up. Ino smirked as she leaned in to kiss Naruto. Unfortunately for her somebody chose that time to open up and she had to quickly move a few seats away. Much to the surprise of both people the person who opened up the door was Sakura. What are you doing here, Sakura? Ino exclaimed, caught off guard that her best friend nearly discovered her secret. I was hoping to talk to Naruto and I heard through the grapevine that he comes here a lot. What about you, Ino? Sakura asked honestly. Sakura didn't expect to see Ino of all people at a ramen spot. I came here to eat. Ino said bluntly. She didn't want Sakura to know about her relationship with Naruto so she came up with a half-truth. Isn't ramen bad for your figure? Sakura asked nervously. She wouldn't go anywhere near a place like this as if not for the fact she wanted to ask Naruto something. This kind of naivety is what I was talking about earlier, Sakura. Naruto groaned before taking off his vest. Sakura was about to respond but stopped herself when Naruto took off his undershirt and revealed his shirtless form to the girls. Ino and Ayame had to hold themselves back from drooling and Sakura was stunned as well. Naruto wasn't extremely muscular but it was clear that he was incredibly fit. So you've got a decent body, what's your point? Sakura huffed, not wanting to admit that Naruto looked really good. What if I told you that I eat anywhere between 10 and 15 bowls of ramen a day and I still look like this? Naruto snorted. Not to mention the fact that I have with at least 2 girls every day, one of whom is your best friend, Naruto thought to himself. There's no way, Sakura exclaimed. She couldn't believe that he ate that much ramen. Naruto put his clothes back on and continued. Between my training and class 1 burn a whole lot of energy. Now that we're gonna be doing missions the need to have tons of energy is essential. Naruto said calmly. Sakura was stunned by the information but Ino was pretty calm since Naruto had told her this in the past. Sakura acknowledged Naruto's point and would try to start eating more. Anyway, what I wanted to ask is how should I improve myself? What do you mean? Naruto wondered. This was definitely not something he expected. You said that I could be a great kunoichi if I stopped acting like a fangirl. The problem is that I'm not a clan ninja like Ino or Hinata, and I'm not incredibly strong like Sasuke or smart like you. How can I be great? Sakura asked nervously. Naruto was surprised by her nerves but quickly understood the problem. Sakura realized that she would be holding him and Sasuke back if she didn't change. Well, my suggestion would be, Naruto started to say but was interrupted by Ino. How about we discuss it at my house? I'm sure I can help you out, Ino said calmly as she looked at Sakura. Normally that wasn't a big deal to Naruto, but he noticed that Ino's eyes briefly glowed red. It was a sign that she was using one of his jutsu on Sakura, which he didn't expect to happen. It seems like I'll be sleeping with Sakura soon. Ino's really pulling out all the stops. Naruto thought to himself. Since she helped him develop the techniques, Naruto knew Ino could perform the jutsu. He didn't expect her to use them actively though. Well, the third said that you couldn't use your jutsu on Leaf Kunoichi. I doubt he realized that somebody else could do so. The Kyuubi chuckled. Aha. Naruto replied as he watched Ino lead Sakura away. He was planning to go over to Amos and celebrate the end of his training, and this definitely changed his plans. As Ino and Sakura left the ramen stop, Naruto realized that he was gonna need plenty of energy. Ayame, I'm gonna need a lot more ramen. Naruto smirked. Got it, Ayame replied as she watched Naruto eat his daily fill. Scene skip. Naruto relaxed in the hotel room that he and Amy used when he took her virginity, but she wasn't alone. Right now Naruto was getting a blowjob from a Hinata and Amy, who were both amused by the current situation. So Ino is really setting Sakura up with you, huh? Hinata smirked. Oh come on. You act like I told her to do that. Naruto smirked as he enjoyed the blowjob. Naruto. We know you didn't, and that's the best part. You've taken 3 of Sasuke's biggest fangirls from right under his nose. Amy teased, adding herself to that group. Sasuke never cared about those girls. He's too focused on something else. Naruto smirked. It's time, ladies, Naruto said with a smile, knowing his release was about to arrive. He looked on happily as he came into Amy and Hinata's mouths, getting the fun out of the way. Just as the 2 girls finished swallowing his cum, the door opened to reveal Ino and a dazed Sakura. Naruto could tell that she was under the effects of his second jutsu. He didn't know whether to be impressed or annoyed with Ino under the circumstances. Looks like we're just in time. Ino smirked as Hinata moved to the side. So when will Sakura be joining us? Naruto said calmly, though he was still pretty angry. In just a second. Ino smirked as she began stripping for Naruto's enjoyment as Amy moved to the side. She knew that Naruto was aware of what he'd done, but figured that she would make up for it later, especially since the effect on Sakura was about to end. As Sakura felt her mind return to her, she was stunned by what she saw. Ino was giving her teammate a blowjob, and Amy and Hinata Hyuga were also and clearly comfortable with the scene. Clearly there was some big relationship that she never knew about. What's going on, and why is Ino giving you a blowjob, Naruto? It's a long story, but as you can see, we're a bit busy right now. Naruto said as calmly as he could under the circumstances. Amy smirked as she walked over to Naruto and kissed him on the laps. Long story, you seduced Ino. Hinata's had a crush on you since forever, and as for me, well, let's just say I wouldn't be here if not for you. Way to simplify it, Amy, Hinata chuckled. I'm confused, Sakura said in shock. Let's just say the dead last is tops in one thing, and that's UAL prowess, Ino smirked. You should try him for yourself, Hinata teased, causing Sakura to blush crimson. She can try him after we're done. After all, she's just a guest for now. The rest is up to her. Ino smirked before resuming her work. For the rest of the night, Sakura just watched in shock as the girls pleasured Naruto with their bodies, and it was taking everything in her power not to join them and stay true to her feelings for the Uchiha. She watched for what felt like hours as Naruto had with the girls, and ended up with a few orgasms of her own from a combination of her masturbation and Ino and Amy playing with her body while he enjoyed the others. Scene skip. The next day Naruto made his way over to the clearing where he was meeting his teammates before his mission, and he walked in on a sight that he didn't quite expect. "You have gotta be kidding me," Naruto said almost happily as he watched the sight in front of him. Sakura and Sasuke were in the clearing, and Sakura was giving her beloved Sasuke a blowjob. He had no idea what brought this up, but he wasn't about to complain since it was an amusing sight. He had to admit that Sakura was pretty good at blowjobs, and that annoyed him, but he did take pride in knowing that Sasuke was only 8 inches compared to his 10. Figuring that whatever happened could only be a good thing, he decided to join his two teammates after a few minutes. Decided to stop watching and join the fun. Sasuke teased since he instantly recognized that his teammate was watching them but chose not to disturb them. "Hey, I didn't want to disturb the two of you. So where did the sudden desire for our teammate come from?" Naruto teased, causing Sakura to blush heavily. "Well, when I arrived at the meeting point I saw Sakura masturbating and I figured that I should reward one of my fangirls for once." Sasuke smirked. Sakura blushed heavily since there was something that Sasuke didn't mention. Naruto smirked since he knew there was more to the statement but decided to taunt his teammate. "More like you wondered why Kakashi panicked over a simple book and got one for yourself. Then, after enjoying said book, you decided that since you never know when you were gonna die that you didn't want to die a virgin." Naruto replied back. Sasuke blushed heavily since Naruto was right, but he wasn't going to give in. "So are you just gonna sit there and watch, or are you gonna join the team bonding experience?" Sasuke huffed, causing Sakura to blush heavily. "Sure, but on one condition." Naruto smirked. "Name it," Sasuke said calmly, wondering where this was going. "I get her, you can take her virginity, but that is mine." Naruto teased. Sakura lacked appeal for the most part, but she did have a nice deal, Sasuke and Sakura both said at the same time. Anybody watching would have been stunned since Sakura seemed so against Naruto when teams were first announced. "Alrighty then," Naruto smirked. This might not be the teamwork that Kakashi-sensei had in mind, but Naruto wasn't about to complain. "Let's get started then." Sasuke smirked since in the end it all worked out. What Sasuke didn't tell Naruto was that Sakura was moaning his name when she was masturbating in the forest. While he hated his fangirls, the idea that she could change so quickly annoyed him. Of course, what Naruto said was true, and he figured he'd use the opportunity. It took a few minutes for Sasuke and Sakura to get to the ground, and by the time they were done, a calm Naruto was dressed. "So Sakura, do you know the anti-pregnancy jutsu at least? I don't think you want to be a mom just yet." "Yeah, I do, but now what? I'm exhausted and we smell like. Plus Kakashi-sensei will be here soon." I wouldn't worry too much," Naruto smirked. He was aware that their sensei had arrived earlier and decided to leave them alone for the moment. "Alright," Sakura said nervously as she started to get dressed again. As they got dressed, Sasuke decided to take Naruto's advice earlier. "Hey Sakura, is it true that I have a big fan club that actually meets once in a while?" Sasuke wondered. He was a bit annoyed that Naruto was so calm during that whole thing and wanted to improve himself. We actually meet this weekend," Sakura said nervously. "Take me there," Sasuke insisted. Naruto couldn't help but smirk at how amusing things had turned out. He had a threesome and did so in the middle of their training ground, and now Sasuke was more motivated to find his own women. "Things were certainly getting fun, and Team 7 wasn't going to be as annoying as I thought." 30 minutes later, Kakashi arrived and he looked at his team with a smile. "So guys, are you ready for your first day of missions?" Naruto smiled. "Yeah," Sakura said sternly despite having a limp from the pounding. "Let's do it," Sasuke replied. The high from the threesome was over and Sasuke was ready to become a stronger ninja. "Then let's go get your first mission," Kakashi said happily, deciding to hide the fact he knew about his team's tryst earlier on. "Well, that's teamwork on some level," Kakashi thought to himself. Scene skip. A month had passed since Team 7's formation and things were getting interesting among the group. Naruto continued his relationships with his girls and even began training Konohamaru and two of his friends in ninja arts. Sasuke was having with Sakura along with Fuki and Kasumi, former members of his fan club, along with a few other girls. Sasuke was fine except for the fact that Sakura insisted on having a threesome with Naruto a week after their first one, and this time Naruto got to enjoy his teammates while Sasuke was relegated to anal duty. Outside of that, he got to enjoy the pinkett by himself. As for Sakura herself, thanks to advice from her teammates and the she was enjoying with Sasuke, she was beginning to get her stamina up to par and her strength was improving little by little. It was a nice existence, but there was a minor problem for all three teens. Okay, I know you said they'd be boring, but this is ridiculous, Sasuke grunted as they turned in the latest D rank. D rank missions were a complete bore. Sure, Naruto's shadow clones helped sometime, but the missions still stunk. Yeah, I know D ranks suck, but you have to do them, Kakashi said calmly, trying to placate the teen. Well, it's time for a better mission, Naruto insisted. Kakashi couldn't help but agree, and he was getting bored also. Let's talk to Lord Hokage about getting you guys a C rank, but not today. Let's do it tomorrow, Kakashi replied. All right, the group acknowledged as they finally prepared for their first real mission.